Hi everybody, here's the video lesson for strings for chapter 10. Remember I forgot to record the lesson on Zoom and a few of you were away, so I thought I'd just do a quick video. Throughout this video we're going to be going through the presentation but also be going back and forth to PyCharm so we can do a few examples. So strings are anything that are not just numbers. I mean, it could be numbers, we're really talking about characters and the stuff we type on our keyboard. So it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. There are some similarities in terms of the way we use variables and the way that we get inputs. But let's go through a few of our learning goals. So we're going to discover how to accept string input. We're going to discover how to get the length of the string. But through the length of the string, we're just talking about the number of characters in a string. We're going to discover how to traverse a string, and traverse just means to go through it step by step or character by character. Discover how to slice a string. By slicing, we mean taking a piece out of it, or we want to find the first 4 characters or the middle 3 characters. Those are all things that we can do with something called slicing. And we're also going to discover and use some of the built-in methods for strings. So something like lower, upper, find, and replace. Now I should maybe explain what a method is. A method is a built-in function. So it's a function that is assigned to a certain variable or a certain type of data. And we'll look at that more as we get into PyCharm. But it's very similar to a function. It does a specific thing, just like a function. But methods have to do with what we call object-oriented programming. We talked about object-oriented programming at the beginning of the semester a little bit. We just haven't really gotten into it that much, but we're going to start to see some of these methods. And we look at the variables that we have, and they're almost like a class or almost like a piece that we're designing, and there's already built-in things that we can do for it. So if we remember way back when to our first day of class, I think we were in Google Sheets, and we were doing things with a data list. And we had a list of our first and last names. We tried to find where the space was. We tried to join different variables or different texts fields, so first and last name. I think we made our email address, and we just did some things. We're going to do similar things with strings here. The first part we're looking at is how do we get the length of a string? And I'm going to actually exit this presentation for a sec. I'm going to copy all these lines. I'm going to go into PyCharm and we can check it out. So I've got it in here. So name equals the input, enter your first and last name. So this is how we input a string. Nothing different than we've done with other variables and numeric variables. Here I'm going to have a variable called L. So it's not a capital, it's not a 1, it's a lowercase l. And L equals the length of the name. And it's going to return however many characters that we've typed or how many characters are in our name. We have to realize and remember that a space is also a character. So if I were to run this, if I were to run the correct program, enter my first and last name, and I have 14 characters, and I'd have to look here, and okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The space is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So far that's correct. It's just giving us the length of our characters. I'll go back to our slideshow. So when might we need to know the length of characters? Well, if you've ever typed an essay or you've had an assignment, the teacher has said it has to be 500 words. Well, we could easily create a program that gets the length of our text. When we type things, 5 characters or 5 keystrokes is considered to be a word. So we could simply type up the code and get the length of our text and the length of our essay, and we could divide it by 5, and it would tell us how many words that we have. So there's a practical use, and you can use that in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. It'll give you the number of characters, the number of words that you have. We're going to traverse the string, and again, we'll put this into Python in a moment. So these first 3 lines are the same. We're going to use a for statement or for loop for I in range. We're going to start at position 0. And we start at position 0 because if we had a word, and let me go down here to the word what. This is position 0. It's also called the index number. So we go from before the W, we go over to the between the W and the H, and that's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So this will take each individual letter and it will display it. So the first letter is going out of my name is going to be an H, and then the next one is going to be an A. And let me copy these lines. We'll go back into PyCharm, and we will see what it looks like. So I'm going to run this program. It's going to again ask me for my first and last name. And it prints it out this way. So it prints out each individual character. So I have traversed or gone through all of the characters in my name. And because we have a variable for our length, we have the variable L, it'll work for anybody's name. So this will work for anybody's name. It'll break up all the individual characters. Now we're not changing the value of name. We are just taking the individual pieces and the individual characters, and I'm just getting that character. Let's go back to our slideshow. Different piece here. This is where we start to slice the string. So for this one, for part name equals name from position 0 to position 5. And I've got a comment here that says, well, the first piece here is our starting point. We're going to start at position 0. Our ending point is position 5. And the direction, we didn't even put the direction in. If we don't put the direction in, it assumes it's going left to right. Now we could also go backwards, so we could go from right to left. And then we're going to print it out. So let me copy that into PyCharm, and we can try that out. Again, I'll type in my name. And for me, it says that part name, so character 0 to 5, is just my first name. So if I were to do somebody else's name, let's say I wanted to use the name Bob, Bob Jang. And we're going to hit enter. And now here at the bottom, we have Bob, the space, because remember the space is a character, and the J from the last name. So whatever name we type in there, we should get. So if we did James Hamilton, we're going to get just the first name because we have 5 characters. If we wanted to try a longer first name, let's say we wanted to get Heather Cook, we will just get Heath because it's just going to take those first 5 characters. Let's go back to our slideshow. So we have our starting point and our ending point. So let's look at how that changes when we change these numbers. So if I wanted to take from my second character to my 5th character, and I want to run it, I'm going to use my name again. Well, I just get the RRY because I'm starting at the 2nd position and I'm going to the 5th position. So here I'm just going to get 3 characters in total. If I wanted to get just my first initial, I could go from 0 to 1. And notice here I just get the H. Now, interesting thing, if I try to go to 16, and I run my program, and I use my name. Okay, even though I don't have 16 characters in my name, it's still going to work. Okay, it's going to take as many as it can. So we're still good with that one. Let me minimize this. Now let's go to our next slide. We can also slice the string backwards by changing that last number. So if I do a -1, it means it's going to go right to left. So let's get these two lines of code, and we'll try this out. I'm going to type in my name. And it here has done my name frontwards to backwards, and here it has it going backwards. Something for us to look at. I didn't have to put anything in here. If I don't put the numbers in there, it assumes we're going from beginning to end. And this -1 is just the direction. If I change that to just a 1 and try it, again, just get my regular name. As soon as I put that -1 in, it changes the direction of it, and I would go backwards. Now, a simple use for this might be if you wanted to find out if a word is a palindrome. So a palindrome is a word that is spelled forwards and backwards the same. And I've got a few examples here. Dad, mom, did, race car, civic, noon. If we wanted to create a program that checks for this, we could just use our conditional statement. So if name equals back name. Let's go into PyCharm and try this out. So if back name equals name, then print this is a palindrome. Else, print this is not a palindrome. I know I spelled palindrome wrong up there, so I'm going to go back up here and fix it before I run the program. I'm going to run my program. I'm going to start with my name. Now my name is not a palindrome. So this is not a palindrome. So it's telling me that it is correct. It is not a palindrome. If I were to use, say I did race car. Race car actually is a palindrome. We'll see if this works. So we get race car forwards and backwards here, and this is a palindrome. So there's an example where we could go backwards to try to make up to a program to see if a word is a palindrome. So using built-in methods, and we're going to look at a few of the methods here in a moment. Let me go back to PyCharm, but we can actually see a couple. So we have this variable up above called name. And if I hit the period after name, I've got a few of these built-in methods. The title one, the upper one, the is alnum or alphanumeric. If it's alpha, if it's numeric, it may make it lower. We're going to look at how to use some of these. So let's say I wanted to use the title one. I'm going to print name.title. And what title does is it capitalizes the first letter of each word. So for example, if I needed to type in the name of a book, Gone with the Wind is a old famous book. Never read it, haven't even watched the movie. But I don't have capitals on my first letters, but because later on I'm going to do a title, we get Gone with the Wind in the title format. We can also use print name.upper. And I'll use my name for this one. but I will put capitals on it so we can make the title method actually work. So I've gone to upper here, and it makes them all uppercase. I can also do a print name.lower, and I should get all lowercase. So here's my title, here's my uppercase, and here's my lowercase. I'm going to minimize this. We'll go back to our slideshow. So we've already checked this one out, and we've done the .upper and .lower. One of the reasons we might want to use methods, we can't assume that the user enters data the right way into a form. And many of us have filled in a form. We've had to enter our name and our address and all that kind of stuff. And we, as a programmer and a person that's collecting the information, we can't assume they've entered in the right format that we want. So perhaps we can use some of these methods to actually change the format. For example, when I fill in a form, I rarely put in capital letters on my name. But anytime I get a correspondence from the website or from the organization, my capitalization is almost always correct. So they're actually formatting it the way that they want it to be. The other one here is we can use the find function. And what find does is it will actually find a certain character that we're asking for. So in this one, I'm asking for the space. So I've got a quotation mark, a space, and then a quotation mark. And what this does is it actually tells me where the space is at. I'm back into PyCharm. And I'm going to say space equals find name dot, sorry, got that wrong, name dot find. I'm going to put a space in there. If I just put quotation mark, that's nothing. There's no character or anything like that. And here, what if I print out space, or SP, it will tell me the location of the space. Using my name again. So my space is at location 5. So it starts at position 5 or index 5. If I use somebody else's name, I'll use Bob's name again. Bob's space is at position 3, or it starts at position 3. Now it only will find the first occurrence or the first space that happens. Now I could do a B. I could find a B. So we'll use Bob's name again for this. And we'll see what happens with this one. Maybe you might want to already know what's going to happen, but we'll try it out. Well, it says Bob's B starts at position 2. So we got to think of why it started at position 2 when Bob starts with a B. Well, here I'm trying to find a small b or a lowercase b, which is different than a capital B. If I wanted to find a capital B, I'd have to put that in quotation marks. And now, if I were to type Bob's name again, it starts at position 0. I'm going to leave that as our space, and we can always find the space. And I might want to know where the space is that I can separate the first and the last name. That's actually a program that you're going to have to work on. How can you actually figure out how to find and separate the first name and the last name? I'm going to go back to our slideshow. We're almost done. And I'm actually going to save this part for a second little video so I can do some more explaining about the American Standard Code for Information Interchange. So we've gone quickly over strings, but again, if I go back to the very beginning, so the very first slide, or second slide, our learning goals were to discover how to accept string input, and we did that. We were going to discover how to get the length of the string, and we figured that out with the len command. And we're going to discover how to traverse the string, and we did that with putting it into a for loop. We're going to discover how to slice a string or get pieces or sections out of our string. We're going to discover how to use the following built-in methods, so title, lower, upper, find, and replace. So we've gone through our learning goals. We've gone through some of these sample programs. So it should give you enough. If you have any questions, send me an email and we'll go through some of these things. But it should be enough to get you going with some of our work on strings.